Sophie Cunningham just got hit with an official warning from the WNBA. Yes, an actual disciplinary notice. All because she made a lighthearted joke about Angel Reese in what was arguably the most harmless, tongue-in-cheek comment of the entire offseason. One playful remark that lasted maybe 20 seconds, and suddenly the league completely lost its mind. The person at the center of this storm is none other than Sophie Cunningham, the blonde bomber herself, one-third of the Tres Leches trio and proud member of the Indiana Fever. Let's take a closer look at exactly what Sophie said that managed to ignite such chaos surrounding Angel Reese. Sophie was casually talking about changing her diet, explaining that gluten is in almost every carb imaginable. She joked that gluten-free foods taste weird to her, then added that at least she could still eat chicken. She continued, saying that since she'd have to eat so many vegetables, she might end up turning into a rabbit. Then came the line that changed everything. "I guess I'm going to turn into a Victoria's Secret model. Call me Angel Reese." That single, playful quip sent the internet into meltdown. Within minutes, social media exploded. Sophie was dragged through the mud, labeled everything from a clout chaser to a racist. And in the middle of all this, Kathy Engelbert, the same commissioner who stayed silent when players were physically targeting Caitlin Clark, suddenly decided to flex her authority and make an example out of Sophie. But here's what everyone seems to be missing. This isn't just about a joke. This is about control, about who's allowed to speak freely in the WNBA, and who gets punished the second they challenge the league's carefully crafted narrative. By the end of this story, it'll be clear that Engelbert's so-called official warning doesn't just expose the double standards in women's basketball, it confirms them. Because let's be honest, this was no accident. Sophie's joke about Angel Reese and her Victoria's Secret runway moment wasn't some careless comment. It was intentional and calculated. Sophie, known for her quick wit and confidence, delivered one of the most precise, thought-out 30 seconds of content we've seen all year. So was it a shot, or was it harmless fun? Before deciding, we need to rewind and look at what led up to all this. Because right before Sophie's joke went viral, Aya Wilson made her own tongue-in-cheek comment that somehow didn't earn her any disciplinary action. Funny how that works, isn't it? Why do you think the WNBA seems biased against Sophie Cunningham? Let us know in the comments below. Let's go back to the Las Vegas Aces post-championship celebration. Aya Wilson was celebrating with a whistle around her neck when she proudly said, "The only special whistle I know." Okay, Aya, relax a bit. You barely beat an Indiana Fever team that was dealing with injuries and fatigue. Sure, you won the championship, and you absolutely dominated, no question. But you act like people are inventing this whole special whistle narrative. The special whistle line, coming from the reigning MVP and self-proclaimed face of the league, was a direct response to critics claiming she gets favorable treatment from referees. But that wasn't all. It was also a not-so-subtle jab at Aaliyah Boston, who struggled to get any foul calls during their playoff series. At first glance, this might have seemed like harmless rivalry banter. But in reality, that comment was the spark that exposed the WNBA's growing credibility problem. Because this issue goes beyond officiating, it's about hierarchy. Engelbert's WNBA has quietly fostered an environment where certain stars can say and do whatever they want, while others face punishment for far less. And Sophie Cunningham has now become the latest example of this imbalance. Now, wait a second, do you think Sophie's comment was actually a shot at Angel Reese? Some fans believe it was playful, others think it was disrespectful, but either way, the reaction was wildly exaggerated. The backlash online was vicious. Sophie's comment sections were flooded with hate. People were calling her every name imaginable. But when you strip away the noise and emotion, what did Sophie actually do wrong? Let's break it down. Sophie's Victoria's Secret comment was a joke, not hateful, not personal, not even particularly edgy. She made a quick reference to Angel Reese's recent Victoria's Secret runway appearance. That's it. Reese walked the runway in lingerie, fact. Sophie mentioned it, also fact. Yet within minutes, social media platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok turned into battlegrounds. The race card was pulled almost immediately. Every major WNBA fan page began labeling Sophie a privileged white player seeking attention. That's when Kathy Engelbert stepped in, not to de-escalate tensions, not to encourage understanding, but to release a carefully worded PR statement condemning remarks that could be interpreted as racially insensitive or demeaning toward fellow players. Let that sink in, a league warning over a comment that wasn't even remotely about race. Meanwhile, Angel Reese can openly mock Caitlin Clark's looks on live TV, and Aya Wilson can taunt critics with jokes about her special treatment, and Engelbert says nothing. That's not leadership. That's selective enforcement. And it reeks of favoritism. Ironically, Sophie's rise in the media spotlight has been one of the most refreshing things to happen to the WNBA recently. She's bold, outspoken, and always entertaining. Her podcast appearances and her involvement with the Tres Leches group have made her one of the league's most authentic voices. But that authenticity makes the establishment nervous. Because in a league that thrives on controlled narratives, Sophie Cunningham represents something different. An athlete who controls her own story instead of letting the WNBA dictate it for her. Here's the deeper truth. This entire situation has less to do with Sophie's joke and more to do with why the league reacted the way it did. Sophie has been carefully carving out a new lane for herself in media, and she understands exactly how to command attention. She knows the two most polarizing names in women's basketball are Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Mention either one, and you're guaranteed to trend. So what did Sophie do? She mentioned Angel Reese, strategically, playfully, and deliberately. Was it trolling? Maybe. Was it jealousy? Not even close. It was branding, smart, calculated, and effective branding. But that's what Engelbert and the WNBA can't stand, a player who's figured out how to use the system better than they can. Angel Reese's Victoria's Secret runway appearance wasn't controversial. It was a major career moment for her, and most fans celebrated it. Sophie's comment wasn't a problem either, it was mild humor. But in today's WNBA, context doesn't matter anymore. Intent doesn't matter. Only perception does. And perception has become weaponized. Every time a white player makes a comment, even a harmless one, about a black superstar, it gets spun into a racial issue. It's never just about basketball or tone anymore. It's about identity politics, and Sophie knew that. She's seen how every Caitlin Clark headline gets twisted into a cultural debate, and she tested that double standard head-on. The WNBA proved her point instantly by issuing a warning over a comment that wasn't even remotely offensive.